Welcome to the next painting session, the next lesson here. I've got the color chart, I've got a value scale, we've got a picture to work from right here of some rocks in the ocean. I think the ocean is really beautiful. And this would be from the west coast where you can see rocks like that in some areas where there's rocks that are coming up out of the sand, and then you have the water that's next to it, the beach, and here's some bushes, some grass areas down closer to where I am when I took that photo. So this is our picture that we're working from today. And before we get started, I thought I would do another sketch because that helps us to see once again the composition and the light and dark areas. So as I am looking at the picture, I point all different ways, right? So wherever the picture is, I'm looking at it, and the thing that really stands out to my eyes are the rocks. Partly because of the contrast of light and dark, right? The sky is very light, the rocks are very dark. And because there's different things that try to point to it, to like visually point to it or guide our eye toward it. So if I'm going to draw that in, I'm thinking, okay, the rock is going to be right about here. I have the grassy area. It's pretty big in the photograph. So thinking about how I'm splitting up those spaces, I'm going to leave more area for the grass in the front here. And you might also notice that there's a bit of a angle to it, that it's not totally flat, that it's going back on the beach, so it's going back in space some, and it is not totally flat. I need to come up. This photograph is actually a bit wider than I was using before, but I'm squeezing it into a space that is not quite as wide. So now I have to think, where is it going? How am I going to arrange the space? Well, I don't want the rocks to come down to the middle here. So I'm going to make the grassy area come up some. And you can see that it's a medium value. There's a lot of things going on in the bushes and the grass, but in this sketch I'm just going to make it all one thing to simplify, one large medium value shape. Okay, and then along the horizon, and this part of the hill or the grass can come up a little bit above the horizon, but the horizon where the sky and the ocean or the sky and the ground are meeting, it will be right about here. I leave a smaller area for the sky, and here's an area for where the sand is along the beach. It actually will curve around here a bit, but I will ignore that for right now. Go for the larger rock. Think about where it is, where I want to put it in the picture, what shape it is. And it's mainly dark. This part on the top is a little bit lighter, but I'm going to show it for right now as a dark shape. We'll get into the values and the colors when we start. So dark And then there's also the other rock that's it's farther into the background, so you see the bottom of the rock sticking out of the ocean. It looks a little bit higher on the ground plane, but it still has to stick down to the ground, right? So I can't have it up here in the sky. I can let it go off of the picture though. I don't have to show the whole thing. And it's darker, but it's kind of a medium darker. Right? And then the one on the other side, same thing. Notice how it looks a little bit higher. It's coming over close to the ground, or to the bushes is what I mean. It's on the ground. And make a shape for it. Okay, and there aren't any clouds in the sky. This is basically what our composition is going to be. The angle up here can draw this angle can help draw our eyes into the picture. The dark versus light contrast bring our eyes to the focal point. Okay, we've got a few waves in here, a couple little rocks here too. I might put those in. I'll put some waves in when we do it. But that is all very light, so I don't need to darken it in. And now we're ready to think about color. Color on this painting. You're definitely seeing some black or something very, very dark. And you can decide, is it a dark that's a little bit cooler, or is it a little bit warmer? Meaning, does it, the rock, does it have more red or yellow? Does it have more blue? It will have all three colors, right? Because you want it to look very dark. But then you can think, okay, what is it going to be? As you push back towards these rocks, notice how they almost look a little bit purpley. So when it's going into the distance, the color will get a little bit more purple. But not like a bright purple, right? Not like, oh, bright purple. Not like that. But dull, because it has the other colors mixed in there too. So it's like a black but purple rock. Okay, and then we also have a tan color here, and we notice that the tan color contrasts with the green color of the bushes. This is definitely warmer compared to this color. The green will have a lot of warm in some of the areas, right? More like a yellow green, or yellow green like this with white. And maybe some of this, different colors of green. Maybe some of these greens are in there too. So you can see a variety of greens in the photo. And then when you compare it with the sand, it is lighter, but it's also warmer. It's more towards this side of the color wheel, where this is more over here on the color wheel. And then, of course, we can also think about the water, that it is a light. There's the white part of the water, but there's also that light blue, but not super, super bright either. Maybe we just tone it down a little bit, and the water is reflecting the sky, so it's similar in color to the sky. Maybe not exactly the same, but similar. So that's the interesting thing about water too. When you want to paint water, it will reflect things. And as we're going along, I hope I can also talk about the reflections that are in the in the water from the rock. There's a little bit of something there. If we don't get that, it's okay, it will still work. Today I've also got a mug of a lighthouse. It fits with the painting. Okay, for my tea. Now, mixing colors. Let's see about mixing a few colors. I'll start with a color for the sky. Let's see. Yep, you can see that up there. So we know that that sky is fairly blue. I had a little something else in that blue already. It looks like that's kind of toning it down, right? So I don't need my sky to be super bright blue. I always like to add just a touch of the yellow and the red, just a tiny amount in there. And my white already kind of has some other mucky colors in there. So it's doing the job for me. And let's see about our value. It's very light. I don't want it to get dark, right? 1 is good. 2 is okay, but not darker than that on the sky. And you also might notice some differences, like right around where the rock is. Notice it's actually brighter right here, and then it's darker farther away from it. Oh, interesting. All right, a little bit more color. Okay, so here's a sky for us. That sky color can also work on the water for right now. We can change it up a little bit if we need to. We want a color for the grass, for the sand, and for the rocks. I think I'm going to start looking at the rocks there. I'll start with a really dark rock first. Blue will always make it the darkest. I'm just going to mix a bunch of the red, yellow, and blue together. See what I get. I think right now it looks a little too green to me when I'm looking at it here. So if I want it not to look so green, that means I'll need a little bit more red. I might need a little more blue too. Not too much yellow. Keeping it very dark. And since I'm not adding any white, I know that if I compare it with my, go up here. If I compare it, kind of. I think maybe you can see it better when I hold it here. But you can see it's very dark. Very dark because I didn't put any white in there. That's the darkest area. But I don't want that whole rock to be dark. I want the top part. You can see there's light shining there. It will get lighter. You know what? I'm going to mix the light part of that rock later. Let's just stick with the dark part for right now, and then go to these rocks. I will mix a slightly lighter color. So if this is a number 9, I think actually it's more like a number 8. I'm looking at it. I think this one looks more like an 8 on my printout. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter, so I have to get at least one more lighter. So at least to a 7, maybe a 6, but not lighter than a 6, right? Because it has to stay dark for the dark rocks. Okay, and I said it was a bit more purple, so it will have a little bit more of the blue in it, which would actually make it darker. But if I add a tiny, tiny little bit of white to the mix, it will lighten it up. Let's see what happens. Okay, it looks very purple right now to me. I think you can't really see that purple very well because it's very dark. It's still too dark and a little too purple, so a little yellow, a little white. Let's see what happens. If it gets too light, I can add more of my other colors too. Let's see. Okay. Yes, that's good. I have it at a 6 right now. And it's definitely purple. It still looks a little bit too purple to me. So I will add a little more yellow. And if you ever find that it's too far towards one color, just add the opposite color and it will bring it closer to the middle, the midpoint, brown, gray type of color that's in between. Okay. Better. I like this one. Now this one looks a little too red. I'm going to make it a little bit more blue. I don't know if you can see it very well though. Oop. Sorry, moving things around. Let's see. Okay, yes, now you can see the difference. That one looks, actually it's not bad. That's not bad. Okay, more purple, more red. That's not bad. Okay, I'll leave it like that for now. But if I need to change it, I will change it. Okay, rocks. Now for some sand. Notice how the sand is very light. But I don't want it to be as light as the lightest part of the sky, because I don't want it to blend in with the sky too much. You can see that color looks kind of like, let's find it. Let's see, kind of like this, a little bit more orange, more like this, but lighter. So yellow, put a little piece of red, make it more brown, make it a lot more white. Yellow. Need a little red, a little blue. Let's find out where this is going. Not red enough. Too yellow, not red enough. A little more red. That's closer. Okay, let's see what value I have. It looks like 2, maybe 2, maybe 3. Might be 3 right now. Yeah, I think that's a 3. This looks like this will work. So I'm going to leave that one alone. If I need to check to see if it's darker than my sky, I can hold it. Oh yeah, it's definitely darker than my sky. If I want, I could even add a little bit more white to it. And I just need to keep making sure that it stays lighter than my sky. Let's see. Oh, it looks like a lot darker than my sky. So yeah, it helps to compare. Let's see. Oh, it's still darker than my sky. It's still definitely darker than my sky. Okay. Okay, I think I'll leave that one there for right now. And I will mix a few greens. Some very muted greens, right? More like this. And some green that's more like this. But making sure I stay kind of in the medium range. Some can be lighter, like the yellow green can be lighter. The yellow green can be as light as the sand in some areas especially. I'm trying to make sure I have enough of the yellow green, and when I look at it compared to my value scale, oh, it's not that light, is it? It's might be like a 5. It's definitely darker than my sand, definitely a lot darker than my sky. I'm going to put a bit of white into that as well to lighten it up, but not too much because I don't want the green to lose the bright yellow feeling. I think I will need a little more yellow too to keep it very sunny and yellow there. Yeah, good. See, I'm holding it over my sand and now it doesn't look as dark. It still looks darker than the sand color, but it doesn't look so dark. Okay, and then I'm going to mix up at least one other color in the bushes. I'm going to make one that has more blue and a little bit of red to it, as well as the yellow. Maybe not quite enough red there. Something darker. And some of the areas on the bushes, you'll notice that some of those areas get as dark as this. And the closer it is to us, the more of that contrast of light and dark you'll be able to see. But I'll start with these two colors. And I want this one to be not too dark. I want it a little bit more like a medium. Right now this looks very dark. Yeah. And I want it to be not quite so dark. So I'll put a little bit of white in there too to lighten it up. It will make it a little bit more gray as well if I add white. But in this case, I think that's good because I don't want all of this to be too bright and then then our eyes don't go here. Okay, I like it. Let's try it out. Try it out. I'm going to put it on the canvas. First, I'm going to sketch my design on the canvas based on the picture that I want. I'll pick this color to sketch with because it's kind of a medium and it will work. Okay, so my horizon is right about here. The grass is coming down at a diagonal. I can put a little curve in my diagonal. Then I have the sand, the rock, trying to figure out where the bottom of my rock is, like that, about like that. Top and sides, a little bit pointy. I don't want to hit the top of the canvas. I need to leave a little space. So once again, I'm remembering that, this canvas here is not as wide as the picture that I'm looking at. So I have to think, okay, I don't want it to touch, because if this goes off the top, then it won't become as much of the focus point. If you want something to be the focus, it's good to have that item in the picture and not halfway off of the picture. Okay, the other rock over here. And since this one is not the focus, it does not need to all stay on the picture. Okay, and I'm going to shorten this rock so that it doesn't totally run into the land. Okay, there's my basic sketch. These shapes are fairly simple, but I'm going to focus more on the color today. The value, but also the color. So I've started looking at warm versus cool. This is warmer, right? More red or yellow, and then versus cooler. This has a lot of yellow in it. This green has a lot of yellow in it, but by comparison, it has more blue than that color. And then this is definitely cooler than this. It has less yellow, more blue in it. Okay, cool. And that's very cool. That's a purple color. Okay, begin painting. I'll start putting in some sky. Okay, and as I'm going along, it's good if I'm overlapping those lines that I'm making and not just going, oh, I'm leaving a space, right? Because if I leave a space, then it's like, what happened? Your colors are not touching. But if you go over the line some, then when you put the other color on, you can go back over that some, and the overlapping will make it so that you don't have the original line showing or white space showing. Okay, so right now the whole sky in my picture looks all the same. All the same. But what I'm going to do is take just a little more blue and make a slightly, just tiny bit darker blue. Let's see if that is enough on there. Yeah, that's working. Okay. And go around on the outside. If the one blue color is still wet and the other color is blending into it, it will work the best and not have any hard edges. But since these colors are very close to each other, meaning as far as light and dark, and so the value and the color are very similar, then it shouldn't make any hard edges. There, this is even darker because I'm thinking, oh, you can't even see that. It's a very subtle change, maybe a little bit too subtle, right? Okay, I'll add a little bit more. Okay, yes, yeah, I think you'll be able to see it now. But I don't want to get too carried away and make this like a medium color. It still needs to stay light. Okay, next part. Oh, yes, I want the water too. There's going to be some white in the water and some of the blue, but not too dark. And when I'm doing the water, I'm actually going to add a little touch of purple, meaning a tiny bit of red in with the blue, because to me it just looks slightly more, the water looks slightly more purple than the sky in this case. Okay, under the rock. The bottom of the rock will look mostly flat because that's where the water is touching it. There's a few waves, a few bumps, but mostly it will just look flat on the bottom part of the rock because of the water. Okay, notice how the waves look almost horizontal in this picture. Just there's a slight angle, and the closer it comes to you, the more of an angle it will have. And the farther away it is, the flatter that angle will look. So there's a little bit of that perspective going on again. But in this one it's so subtle that you can hardly tell. I'm leaving a little space for the white areas, but I will actually use white paint in those areas too, and not just leave it as the white of the canvas. Let's see here. Okay, and there's a tiny bit of the water here. You can just barely see it, but notice that if your water is slightly darker than the very lightest part of the sky, then, oh, it's there. I see it right there. But just very subtle, not a lot. Okay. Okay, next I'm going to still build around the rocks. So I'm going to go for the sand next, going from back to front, sort of, right? The rock sits in front of some parts of the sand, so I'm going to do that. Okay, my sand on here right now it looks medium, but it will look lighter when I put the rest of the colors on. So again, I don't have to be worried about the value. Okay, I'm looking at my composition to see how much sand I want. So I might pull some of the bushes up a little bit more there. I'm not sure, but I kind of like that curve instead of just flat. I like the way that looks. We'll see. Okay, next. Let's do it. Dark rocks. Now, if I'm switching from a light to a dark color, I need to make sure, especially sure, that my brush is cleaned if I'm using the same brush, or else I use a totally different brush so that I don't worry about, oh no, it was very light and now my dark color got mixed with the light color and it's not dark. Dark. Yeah, let's go for it. Okay. Okay. Then, because this area is more important to me, I'm going to look carefully at my shape. I'm looking at the side, at the bottom. Of the shape. Thinking about what angle I'm using. So on the left side and the right side, see this, the angle is fairly straight on this side. It angles a little bit in on this side. And then the top right, the top left, I check my angles carefully. Now it's not like an object where you know it's wrong if if you don't have a straight line on the side, right? It's a rock. So it won't really matter if your angle is off here because nobody will look at it and say, "Ah, that's the wrong way to draw a rock." It will still look correct. So, and that's a nice thing about rocks and trees. They don't tell you that you just drew them in the wrong proportion. They always look kind of about right. Even if they're not exact. Okay, dark. And I know that my camera is at kind of an angle here. Oops. But now you can see it a little bit better what I'm doing. Okay. But I don't want my camera to fall off the table, so I'll keep it there. Okay, these rocks here on the side, a little bit lighter, pushing it back farther. So when you have it slightly lighter in value, it will push it back and make it look like it's behind there. Also having it higher up is another way that it will look like it's higher. The bottom of the rock, make sure that the bottom stays mainly flat. And then the top is, in this case, the top of the rock is where we see the angles. Okay, but I am changing this one a little bit because it doesn't fit the whole rock in there. Straight on the bottom. Okay, and I think you can already see the difference here and here, the value difference. Okay, next. I'll go for this area here, the grassy bush area. Think about where I want the darker and lighter areas. They can kind of smush together. I don't have to make all of the little details because in this painting, this is going to be my focal area. This is the part where you go, oh, look here, look here. So this area, I know it has all of those details in there, but I'm not going to worry about all of them and use some looser brush strokes when putting that in. I'm looking, so it looks random, right? It looks like I'm just slapping it on randomly. But no, I'm looking for where I see the darker areas. But then instead of making the edge really nice, like this, I just scrub it on because I'm not interested in the details, so I'm just using the brush in a different way when I'm putting this on. Okay, and I also want some areas to be lighter. And I let that blend together so that I don't have a sharp edge. And if I see myself making an edge that looks too sharp in this area, then I can wiggle my brush some more and blend it so that it's not as sharp. Okay, there are a few more different kinds of colors in this area that can help to make it all work together. Notice how some of these bushes, they're a bit more red. It's green, but it's a little bit more red. So if I take some red, some of my green, but it's not so dark, it's a little lighter. Okay, it actually, when I do that, it actually comes out, this looks kind of brown here. I think that might be a little bit too red, right? I might want it a little bit more green. But if I compare on my values on here, I'm not really matching it up with one of these exactly, but it looks warmer. It doesn't look as cool. So too much red, right? This is the part where in this painting you can think more about color, because you notice that there's the browns in there, the brownish greens and the brighter greens. And then when you do this, compare what you have. So if I look here, if I show this camera a little bit better down here. So if I'm looking at this color that I just made using this but adding a little red and white, and then I think, okay, oh look, it did change some. It's looking just a little different. Yeah, I think you can kind of see that. That's a little fuzzy. Okay. But the value looks too similar to me. Actually, that will work because I will have that and then I'll add some slightly lighter. So now I can look in there. I can go, oh, where in my bushes do I see more of a brown color, but and not too light. somewhere in here. So it already looks very similar to the green that I have. It only will change some things a little bit. Okay, but I wanted one that's a bit lighter too. Okay, now as I'm working on a color here, down here, to add into my bushes, and I can come up and I can compare it to the sand on the beach. If I'm going to add it right here, okay, that means I'm making it too light because I don't want this area to blend into the sand. And you may notice that it is a slightly different color. This is warmer, this is cooler. This area should stay cooler than this area. So, brown and brown, but not the same. It's not really green enough. And it's too light. Okay, it's getting kind of too blue to me. It needs because this area it's more dull, right? It's not as bright as this. This area is more dull, but it should also be darker. Oh, I think I've got it. Try it out. I think so. Let's try that. Yeah, see, it's darker. It's still darker than the sand, but it's more dull. It's a little bit more gray looking. I would actually like it if it was just a little bit more yellow. Yeah. And maybe even slightly more red, but not all the way to there. And over here there's some of that sort of gray look too. Now, if you have more of a dull color, it will make the brighter area stand out more. So the contrast between bright and dull, so saturated color and unsaturated color, makes the parts that are saturated stand out more. Let's see if this is helpful. Yeah. Okay, I like that. Get a better view on there. I don't want all of my saturated color to go away. Make sure it's in there. So when the two are next to each other, you'll notice it. I think in the camera it's very hard to see, but hopefully when I take a photo, it will show up better. Okay, and then this part is going into the distance, so I have my green, but I'm going to just put a touch more blue into that part of the green as it's getting farther away. And remember, this brown here had a lot of red in it. Haha. I'm actually going to use it just a little bit though. So I don't want everything here to turn dark. I just want to have a little bit more contrast. And if I turn the brush in different ways so that it doesn't look like here's a piece, here's a piece, here's a dot, here's a dot, and look for a few dark areas, just blend them in there, then it looks more like, oh, there's like some bushes and there's some shadow areas in the bushes, not little pieces of things that are like, what is it? Okay, now trying not to get too detailed because this and this is where I want more of my detail. Okay, I'm going to put away my big brush and move on to a little bit of a smaller brush. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go back to the sand. I don't know if you can see a couple of things on the sand. I like to not have it look too flat. So, and there's a little something here that needs blending so that I don't have a white area. That's okay, get rid of that. But on the sand itself, I'm ignoring the rock that's there. You can add it if you want. But on the sand itself, there's a couple of areas where it's just like, oh, here's a spot, there's a spot. I think that's the water on the sand making that particular area of the sand slightly cooler. So if I take my sand color and add a little blue, I'm actually using the blue from my sky, or actually from the water there, and it cools it off. It makes a slightly cooler color. Yeah, you can see it, I think. This one versus this one, slightly different. And if I put it on here, there's just a subtle difference. So if I go like that, you see it on the picture, but it's not like, bam, oh, what is that? It just blends into the sand and it adds a bit of detail, like, oh, there's a little bit of water right there on the sand. And as the sand is going into the distance, you might think, oh, isn't it getting cooler as it's going back? Yes. So that can also help to cool off the color of the sand as it's going back. I left a piece there, that's for a rock. This type of detail is very subtle. I think you'll like how it comes out, how it's effective at adding just a little touch of something into the picture instead of having a totally flat color. Okay, next. Let me work on some of this water. It needs white. And I can use pretty much just white because that part is very, very light, and let it blend in some areas. But you'll notice that it has edges to it. So I don't have to blend it as much as this, partly because it's closer to the area I want your eye to look. Right? This also has edges, but I don't want you to look here so much, so I blur it more. And I think I'll leave this with a little bit sharper edges. somewhat sharper edges. Okay, some of these areas are not quite right yet. I can fix it, add some of the blue in where I want it to go. Okay, here. All right, I know this area is not quite like it is in the photograph, but I'm gonna work with it like that. You'll notice that the part of the wave that's sharper or not as blended will be the part that is coming towards the shore because the wave is coming in. So then it will be sharper on this side that's towards us, and a little, like there might be some streaks pulling back where it's going into the ocean. And also another thing you might notice is some areas you might have a tiny bit of shadow, but not dark, right? We don't want a really hard edge, but just a little bit of shadow. So if I have the color of my water and I add just a little bit of dark with it, like for example, I take a little bit of that rock color and mix it in there. Oh, I can't quite see it yet, right? I need it a little darker so I can see it. See the difference? Okay, and I can use the flat edge of this, or I can use a thin brush and put just a tiny bit. Let me show you what I mean. Right at, oh, that was too tiny. Try again. Oh, that's a lot. But that's okay. There's actually a shadow there. You might see it in the picture. Tiny, tiny bit of edge. If you get too much of the edge, you can add some of the other color over the top. And you don't need it on all of the parts of the wave either. Just a little bit. Then it's like, oh, that part of the wave is curling in, curling under. Okay, some parts I'm thinking, oh, maybe that's a little too much. But now I'm making it too dark here, huh? Okay, try again. Lighten, lighten. There we go. And I need some more ocean water here next to the rock. Right here. Okay. I think the camera is adjusting. You can kind of see it. It looks like on this side I can even go a little bit darker, but not gray like underneath the wave there. Like a little bit more of the blue, the purpley blue. So I can compare that to what I already have and think, okay, I'm just trying to make it slightly darker over here. Not dark. So if I look at my color, right, it's still in the lighter area. Ooh, okay. See, that might be too dark already. Okay, if it is, just add a little white. Try. Okay, better. Camera's adjusting. Is it going to show? Is it going to show? Oh yeah, here we go. If I shade it with my hand, you can see it a little bit better. And you'll see the final one a little better too. So there are some waves in the picture. Okay, next I will do something with these rocks. We see that the top part of the rock is a little bit lighter than the shadow part of the rock. So if I take a tiny bit of white and mix it in with some of that color, just enough so I can see the difference, but it won't end up as a medium. It still has to be darker, right? Because I don't want this to be like, oh no, what happened? Dark light. It's out there. It's a subtle change, and you think, oh, I see a little bit of light on top of that rock. So I'm mixing a little in until I can see. Okay, I can see it. I can see a difference. This one and this one. Make sure I don't have white on my brush. Okay, and then I'm looking to see where the light parts are on the top of the rock. I didn't talk about the direction of the sun yet in this picture. if you ever see something where the front part is dark, then you know the sun is not shining from this direction, right? It's like, oh, this is dark, so the sun can't be shining from here. Maybe from the top, maybe a little bit more from the back. It looks to me like if I'm looking at the rocks here, notice how this edge is not light, but this edge is, so the sun is a little bit more this way. And maybe a little bit more towards behind the rocks, but not all the way behind the rocks. So this side is lighter. I think I will have to use some more of the dark color to make sure we can see this, because I'm pretty sure that you can't really see it at all. Okay, let's see. What about like this? Maybe not. Okay, I'm gonna try getting. Sorry, I'm gonna try getting this other camera closer though. A little bit closer. Okay, maybe a lot closer. Let's try again. Hard to be subtle here and make it look right. Can we see it? Not really. Uh-oh. It is there. Maybe I will have to add a little bit more white even into the lighter area so that we can see it. Kind of. And you're probably thinking, no, what are you doing? You're touching it with the same color. I promise I'm not. Wait, let me try one more direction. Let's try, oh, dipping it in paint. Let's try this direction. Still no. Okay, if you were looking at it, you would see it. But with this camera, it is not showing. Try this. Nope. Oh, okay, well, you will see it in the final one that I'm using a slightly lighter color up here. Okay, and I'm also going to use some of my sky and just touch up the edges here. Give it the details that I want on that edge. Get rid of those white areas. Okay. And I can even go in with a bit more blue with my dark. I wonder if this will show. Maybe not. Okay, this might not be showing either. But for the really dark areas where I really want the darkest shadow, I can use more blue in that color. Maybe I'll have to take a close-up photo so that you can see what I'm doing here. And just looking carefully at the shape of the rock and work on it a little bit more, since that's the area that I want to have noticed, thinking about, oh, that's what I'm looking at. Okay. Even a little lighter right there. Oh, I think you can start to see it on the camera. Okay, I'm going to work on this rock as well. I take that color that I had already mixed for it and put some white with it to lighten it. I could put just a touch of yellow in there. It's already very purple and cool back there, but just a tiny, only a little bit of yellow for the lighter areas on this rock. Looking for the shapes that I see there on the rock. The light shape versus the shadow shape. Okay, I will put a bit more in the dark areas. Maybe it will show up. Okay, yeah, you can see it a little bit. Now, if I want, I can even do a little more blue with that color, with the dark color, and look for the really dark areas on there. So if you have 1, 2, 3, 3 values, 3 colors with different values, then it will help that to look more three-dimensional. Okay. Yeah. And the other rock. I didn't really do the sky touch up here yet, but I should do that. I'm going to use a different brush so I don't have to wash that or clean that one so much. And try to get the dark out. There we go. Okay, yeah. And I have this piece of rock. Oh no, there's still a white part there on my canvas. I have to fix it, right? add that rock. I will keep it, I'll push it back, don't have it too close, but maybe it's not as far away, so maybe some of that brown that's in this one will go into it as well. A few waves in the background. Darker area. Lighter area. Okay, and this rock needs the lighter areas too. And the darker shadows going around this rock. Trying to make sure I don't have those white areas there, so it's blended in. Okay, that's better. There, that will help that rock stand out. If I have just a little bit more light area on the top of it. Let's take a look at what we've got today. Here we are. Here it is, the finished one. I will send you the photo as well so that you can see what it looks like.